Well, after a public outcry, the NOPD no longer releases the criminal history of murder victims, and Karen Gadbois with the Lens was instrumental in prompting that change, and she's here this morning to talk a little bit about it. Karen, this was something that we all looked at for the last couple of months. It just didn't feel right. Certainly the chief has backed off that policy, but it came after a report that you did that sort of really shined a light on it in a tough way. Tell us about the story.
Well, we'd been looking at those release of records along with all the NOPD press releases, and was sensing that there was a trend in the community to push back on that policy and say it's really not helping the situation any by releasing these records, sometimes releasing the records before they even release the name of the victim. And you have to understand that these are victims of violent crime. They are not perpetrators. And so there was the sense that the NOPD was applying this policy or this procedure in a way that was not uniform. And so when the unfortunate situation happened in Algiers, tragically, where Mr. Ainsworth was shot attempting to interrupt a carjacker, one of the community members who had been interested in this asked me, does he have a record, and is the NOPD releasing his record? And when I went and looked, which it's not a difficult record to locate, but when I went and looked and saw that yes, indeed, he did have a record, my editor, Steve Beatty, and I decided to publish that story. We had received some criticism about publishing his record, but it seemed to us that it would be unfair to not publish the record and simply leave it up in the air, sort of he too had a criminal record.
I mean, everyone feels for this man. I know this was a tough story to do, but it sort of showed the hypocrisy of that policy, especially when you consider that some of the records of people who had been convicted of nonviolent crimes were being released. I'm not sure it's valid in any situation, but some of the records we were seeing were all of nonviolent crimes in nature, and most of them had nothing to do with whatever befell the victims of those crimes.
Right, you weren't seeing any direct correlation between their past record and the present events. And I think that in a situation where the NOPD, specifically the chief, is asking for the community to come forward and to engage in helping identify problems, other situations, it was a bit of a double-edged sword. They were on one hand asking the community to engage, come forward, and at the same time offending certain members of the community who felt that their families, their loved ones' records were not germane to the situation.
Senator J.P. Morrell had proposed legislation to do away with the policy. I understand he's had some words to say about the Lens, and do we know what the status of that legislation is?
Well, he said that it went away, effectively went away. I would have to look at that again because I thought that it was more of a statewide legislation, not specifically just Orleans Parish, but in his words, it had died effectively.
All right, Karen Gadbois with our partners at the Lens. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.